Hey guys, this is Rainy from Stormbringer magazine, and that is what we call the ultimate thrash metal table. It's a big honor for us to have Bobby Blitz Elsworth from OVERKILL here and David White from Heathen. Guys, thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
You're now on a Killfest tour 2011 together with Destruction. It's a very solid thrash-only package, but I'm pretty sure in your long careers you have some really wired tour packages. What was the wired band you were playing with, Bobby, or you, David?
Well, first to this tour, the idea was to create a bloodbath. And I think we've accomplished that by our record up to this many dates. We're about 10 days into the tour, and every night has been successful based on the energy level, and obviously necessary to create packages in this day and age. Give people value, raise the excitement level, and turn it into a successful tour and show. Probably the best or wildest tours that I remember for OVERKILL, and really exciting to me to this day, was Slayer, Motorhead, OVERKILL through the U.S. So this may be the bloodbath, but that was some party fest for a guy in '88.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's been pretty amazing this tour so far, and everybody, the OVERKILL guys have been so gracious, and having us on here, and it's been a great opportunity for us. And we've known the guys from Destruction for a long time, so it's nice to hang out with them, good friends, and the energy level each day has been getting stronger and stronger. Every show, I've watched everybody step it up, from day in and day out. It's been incredible.
I guess, especially for you, it was important, this tour, because last year you did a headliner tour in very small venues. Now you have the bigger venues with two very big bands. It's the greatest opportunity since 18 years.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I mean, when we did the tour last year, there was really the label pushing us to go out and promote their album and headline, which wasn't really what we wanted to do. We wanted to get on with some groups that are, established, because we're coming back. And so we're basically on the comeback trail, and to do that, you don't want to go out and headline. Luckily, it was a successful tour, even though it was small venues. We still had a good, a lot of success on the tour. So, now we're back.
First, here's the money I promised you for talking nice about OVERKILL.
€50. It's the day, salary for this day. Let's talk about the 90s, guys. It was surely not the best time for thrash metal, if I remember. Destruction, who are on the tour now, Shmi wasn't even part of the band. Heathen were broken up, were not active. Only Bobby was holding the thrash metal flag high in this grunge poison desert. Have you any idea why thrash metal in the 90s was so down and people were not interested in it? Was it only the grunge, or wasn't it maybe that some of the bands didn't release their best albums at this time?
Well, it's obviously a combination of things. And when music moves to major labels, especially on a wide level, it becomes, to some degree, disposable. Very much like that grunge scene became disposable after the thrash scene was disposable. So when you moved up to Atlantic Records, to Capitol Records, only a few bands, I think, could survive, and those bands, let's say, were the big four at that particular time. Major labels dispose of things. They take it, for all it's worth financially, and then they dispose of it. I think in our case, what ended up happening was we became self-managed at that time, so we found a way. This is something that we liked to do or loved to do prior to what major labels had to say about it. So the idea there was not less interest in it, there was less publicity about it. It had moved back to the underground. So once we formulated a way to understand that we could survive at a high level in the underground, that was to find smaller labels, that was to find smaller rags to promote the scene. We found that there was still a thriving scene under there. So in our case, and I only know by our own experience, that we went from above ground back to the underground where we were comfortable, and I think where this music thrives. And that's probably the key to our survival through that time. I don't necessarily think it was about less records of less quality. I think it was about a real confusing time because we had moved the thrash scene up above ground, not just Overkill, but everyone, and then had to go back to the underground to survive. So if you could make that transition, you could hang around. And there were still other bands, in that underground scene. It was Testament still existed, and some of the other bands. But it went from 80 bands to 8 bands very quickly. And that gave Overkill some unique opportunities because there was still a love for this music in the underground, but there was a hell of a lot less choices.
How have you in the 90s, but Heathen were not even active at this time?
Well, what happened with Heathen is Lee actually had an opportunity to play guitar with the Krupps. And so he went off and did that, and everybody did different things. Some people were raising their families and things like that. But watching them, what music was doing, it's like what he said, it's like it sort of wound down to, a certain few of who was surviving through that time. And it was a lot of competition, and then definitely the grunge thing had a real impact in the States for sure. And even the death metal thing was going on more in Europe. It was a big, it's a big trend during that time. And it's funny because you see that where it's history sort of repeating itself, where it's come back, right around 2000, all of a sudden you're seeing kids starting to wear their jackets with patches again, and you could feel that was beginning to happen again. And so there's kids that are 16, 17 that can tell him or me about our records, our first couple records, and you go, really? How do you know this? You weren't even born.
You said it's come back because most, especially in the US, thrash combos blame the Trash of the Titans benefit concert for Chuck Billy, that they reunite. Death Angel reunites after this concert. You did reunite after this concert. Was this really the beginning of a renaissance of thrash metal? Only this one concert?
I think for the Bay Area it was.
Yes.
Even Anthrax came out, for the benefit. It definitely. I mean, we thought it was going to be a one-off. And so we thought that'd be fun. Let's do it. Then we were invited to do the Wacken Festival a year later. And when we went out to do that and hanging out with each other and just being a part of that and seeing the kids out there, we knew that we wanted to do it again. And that's when we started moving forward.
And you also saw the, right around that time, the emergence at a real high level of labels like Nuclear. And, the idea is that kind of strength and that kind of a high-end promotion put these bands where they should be, and that's in front of people. So it's, I think it was a combination of many things that, made it come around. I mean, all things have to line up, and that's how things work.
That's true. Very true. Well said.
Gary from Exodus said once in a statement that when people going to the poor, when it comes that the economies suck, then a so-called revival of thrash metal music is on its way. Is there a truth in this statement? Do you think?
There's a great. Have discussed this in the past because we've talked in the past. But there's a lot of parallels to when thrash was in the '80s starting, and to what happened just recently with regard to economy, social issues. I remember the '80s as a time of war. A time of no jobs, a time of very little future for the younger American or the younger citizen of the world. It was the pre-Reagan era in the U.S. We had just come out of the Jimmy Carter administration, and we had the living shit beat out of us. And I think because of these kind of social and political issues, what comes out of that is always a voice in the dark. What comes out of, let's say, bad economic, political times is always somebody who's screaming and wanting to be heard. A lot of those parallels happened over the last years with regard to the economy, with regard to what happens in the Middle East, with regard to where we send our young people to protect our way of life. And I think that voice in the dark, again, has validity. And I think that becomes the parallels between the '80s and what we call the Bush administration, for instance, or the Bush worldwide administration, where the world again was thrown into war, and then afterwards we're in an economic downturn. So the voice in the dark actually is valid again.
Speak about reunions. So many, especially thrash bands, reunited in the last couple of years. Is there any band out there who haven't reunited yet and you say, hey man, they should come together? To be honest, I don't find any thrash band where I say they could reunite. Because Pantera will be impossible. Violence for sure will be impossible too. Is there any band you say, hey guys, these guys should reunite?
You just covered it. Those are like really the two that would come to mind, and it's violence is not impossible, but probably improbable.
Yeah. Pantera is impossible.
Yeah, that's impossible. Yeah. But like in the Bay Area scene, I mean, there's so many of us that have reformed. I mean, everybody's there. I don't know about on his side of the country.
It's funny because, when you said the Pantera thing and it's impossible, so many other lists went through my head because of the reason why it's impossible. I was a big punk fan when we grew up in the city. We used to go hang out down on St. Mark's Place and, drink a beer out of a bag just so we could see the Ramones doing the same thing, And that obviously is impossible too. And so is the New York Dolls. And so is Typo Negative.
Yeah.
And it's... it's a fucking shame, but it's at the same time it's life, and it's I don't think it's the cost you pay. I think it's the impact you've had on people. And when it comes to reunions, I can't think of anyone else. I think everyone else has been brought out of that closet to come back out and shine in the sun again. And it's been a great thing for this scene that. The scene has grown with every reunion, or every valid reunion. These guys made a lot of noise when they were doing stuff out in the Bay Area, and they made a lot of noise in the early days, and they're making noise again. Now that shows me value if you transcend 2 or 3 generations and can actually reach these people, the people from the 80s, but still, again, people who are 16, 17, 18, 19, that is fucking huge.
Where's my wallet? I want to give you.
I was talking about me then.
A lot of bands lately did recently what they called special shows, where they played a certain record in a row on a show. Metallica did it with the Ride the Lightning. We know Slayer, they played Rain in Blood in a row. Now they do it with South of Heaven. Testament did it, Megadeth did it. What about you guys? What about playing Victims of Deception on a row on an album? I guess, Bobby, you will do something similar at the Sears Rock Art Festival, right?
Yeah, I didn't know it until I read that in the magazine. And I saw
announced that it will be a special show.
I saw Goods and Thomas the other night, and I said, "Thank you." I believe really, and we had discussed things in the past with regard to that. For instance, doing our first record. But then, if everyone else is doing it, I've always prided myself on the fact that we've run by one rule, and that's overkill. And to necessarily follow the trend is not what we'd like to do. And maybe that's one of the reasons that the 90s still happened for us, that it went through for that amount of time, that it was just tenacity. We don't have to do what other people are doing because we believe our formula works. And if we believe it, then we can convey that belief to other people. I don't want to play Field of Fire start to finish. I just don't want to. And so I'd rather do what we do and make noise. And what has value to me, and I think I say it on stage every night, I know your heart's in the old school, but my heart beats faster when you're into the new stuff. And that's what really, man, if you can make noise today, it's much more about what we are as opposed to what we were. And I think what we are is always more important, and that's what keeps the next step coming.
Yeah, it's funny because that, I know Exodus did that with Bonded by Blood, and actually we've been offered something in the fall where they're asking us to play our classic album, and we're like, well, what's our classic record? And how do we define that at this
honest,
point?
the last one.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I said.
I agree. I
said,
think that's your best work.
I agree. I do. And so but you have a lot of fans that go, "Oh, Breaking the Silence, that was your best, blah blah blah," And so, we don't know what we're going to do, but we know that we're going to come there and we're going to, like you said, we're going to make some noise.
But to make me or to make you more valid on Thursday in Austria, 2011, it's about evolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's about Ironbound. It's not about Field Fire. It's not about bullet belts and funny vest I used to wear. And for me, it's not.
Sure.
I mean, hey, great, and that has value. But the greater value is about the step you take from day to day, and that's, maybe that's an Overkill philosophy. Maybe it's something that we grew up with in New York. It's I've always considered it very different. That there's a certain tenacity that says, hey, this is what I am. If you don't like it, that's your problem.
Oh yeah, even on this tour, we are able to play. We're second support, so we have a certain amount of time, and we wanted to just push forward with the new stuff only. And we have people, oh well, you didn't play this, you didn't. It's like, hey, we're here to push forward. That's our deal.
It's really cool too because this is my first experience with Dave, and I still consider myself this long in the business as a student of this. And I think that once you stop learning, you stop progressing. If you say I've learned enough, then you've ended your progression. And I stand on the side of the stage whenever I have enough room to watch what he does on stage. And I come to the conclusion in my head, I say, he's a good front man. I got to steal some of that stuff. I'm going to steal some of that. I'm going to steal some of that. I'm going to steal.
And I get the same thing. I'm watching him, and he's incredible.
It's progress, though. It's progress.
You guys will be bankrupt after this.
I know.
Yeah, sure. And we're paying each other the same amount.
Yeah, so it evens out. But I get the same thing, and watching him, he's been doing it for a long time, and I just, every night I'm like, man, and he's bringing it and bringing it and bringing it, and and they're doing it for an hour and a half, and he's bringing it.
It's the drugs.
Bringing it is the keyword for the last question. We all know last Christmas, Lemmy from Motorhead turned unbelievable 65 years old.
Congratulations, my friend.
Bobby, you're a little bit older than David and I am. We are both, I guess, in the mid-40s.
What? 30s.
No, 30s. No, okay, then I'm in the mid-40s.
Let me tell you a good trick. After you're 45, lie older. Then people say, wow, you look fucking great for 55.
But the question is, can you imagine to still tour, to still be this rock and roll frontman at an age from 65 years?
Taking it one day at a time, brother.
In my opinion, I never like to look into the future. I'm a man of immediacy when it comes to what I enjoy. I've always enjoyed touring. I've always enjoyed Overkill. I enjoy people. When I stop enjoying that, I'll stop doing this, or if it's physically impossible for me to do. But I won't look into the future like that because it's really a contradiction of the philosophy I've given you prior. And it's really about a day-to-day thing for me. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but if I know I put the most into Austria, I know that tomorrow in Hungary, I have a chance to succeed again. And I think that that's really the best way for me to look at it, because if I start putting numbers on it or saying, Dee Dee and I are working on a live record called No Sleep Till Social Security, it's not okay. It's more about Austria today, and that's it's a sports team philosophy where it's one game at a time. And if you have that one game at a time and you can win that game, you have the chance to play another day. And I really think that that's the best way, because if I start looking into the future, I kill everything I've lived for prior to this. So it's really simple for me. It's about today.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. That's my same philosophy. It's just like every time we get to get up there and do it, it's another at bat.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, it was fun, man.
It was cool, really cool interview, and have fun at the rest of the tour.
Hey, you too.
And a lot of wins of the rest of the tour.
Yeah, absolutely.